otherwise, I think that's pretty much it for like news or stuff. Yeah, they announced Archeage 2. Yeah, I mean, we should probably go over that. They didn't really announce Archeage 2, by the way. They had an interview about Archeage 2. By my understanding, Kakao and XL Games are going to officially announce Archeage 2 sometime early next year. And so an official announcement is a little different, right, than an actual interview about it or whatever. I think that there's a bit of hype because of like the XL Games and Kakao like earnings reports and everything, and Archeage 2 is in there, so everybody's like, oh man, holy shit. Okay, but I get it, right? It's a video game. It's gonna be okay. So, yeah, this will probably all be highlighted on my YouTube channel, because I know everybody's been asking about Archeage 2. Alright, so we'll go over it. Let's just do it. Let's just go over it. We're gonna have a conversation about it, okay? And like I was saying earlier too, I've been watching lots of different streamers who have been saying really crazy things, and really, like, so many misconceptions about the game and everything, and about the management and everything, and it's like, I get it, you guys want views for your videos to make money, but like, geez, alright, chill, people. The problem is people are not considering Archeage 2 like it's a different game, okay? It is, it's a completely different game, and it can be completely different. It's just called Archeage 2, and yes, Jake Song is making it, alright? Yeah, I think that Jake Song will have a pretty decent vision for it, but we have no idea what that is. But we can go over like the interview a little bit as well. And in general, you know, we have to wait and see. Guild Wars 2 is a very different game from Guild Wars 1, right? But people still play Guild Wars 1, and for very different reasons from Guild Wars 2, right? It's not just about characters, but the gameplay is different as well. People still play EverQuest 1, which still gets content releases to this day. So, I mean, it's not like these games die out, it's just they are their own game. They have their own audience still. And people have to kind of remember that, okay? If it ever gets to the point where Archeage 1 is inactive enough that all the servers merge together into one, that's actually pretty cool, and I think people would actually enjoy that. And the gameplay in Archeage 1 is still probably going to differ massively from the gameplay in Archeage 2. We have no idea what it's actually going to be like. I mean, personally, I wish that it will still be as, crazy fast-paced, where you can mix and match all the different skill sets and there's all these crazy combos and you have to research and do all these crazy things. I hope that's still the case. But the reality is it might not be, especially if they want to make this game both PC and mobile. So, and they might even go like to Xbox or something. But what does that mean? It's probably going to be a very different game, honestly. I think they're going to do some really simple version. I don't know, who knows? Again, that's all speculation that I don't want to get into. I hope that it's as crazy and fast-paced as Archeage 1, but the reality is we have no idea, right? And if it isn't, I'm probably not going to play it that much. I'll play it because of the lore and everything, but I love the style of Archeage 1 way too much, and the gameplay and the fast-paced of it, and it's why I just can't even go to another MMO at the moment, because I keep coming back to this one, because the gameplay is too much fun. So, oh, there was somebody right over there. Oh, they're probably getting the wartime Daru thing. Yeah, so it's, we'll kind of see. But I did want to go over the interview a bit. I showed off the house. Let me go back to Marianople. We'll go over the, we'll do it. Let's go over the interview. Let's see what they were talking about. I know this is like the top subject that everybody's talking about when it comes to Archeage related things. Let me bring up the browser. I don't even know if it's going to work. Oh, it worked. Wow, look at that. Is that visible? I think it's visible, right? Oh, it's going over most of the overlay. Hold on. Let me put this down to there. Okay. Nice. Browser. There we go. Alright, cool. I think that works out pretty well. Alright. So, what servers? I'm on Win server. I am forever. Oh, hey. We gotta get this. Sorry, you guys can't see. Hold on. There's not that much interesting stuff. Let me just get the... Blue Salt Bond. Oh, 5 bonds. Nice. What do I have now? 3 and 5? Okay. Man, this is all going to get highlighted, so this part's like... Alright, whatever. It's fine. So, yeah, so let's go over this a little bit, alright? It's like the only information that we have for the most part about Archeage 2. And again, it feels like they're going to do an official announcement sometime early next year, which seems to be what Kakao Games wants to do. But please consider Archeage 2 like a completely separate game, all right? Don't compare it to Archeage 1, not even by management, because it can be totally different. It can be a totally separate game, all right? So this is an interview where they kind of talk with Jake Song about his vision with Archeage 2, and he says a lot of the general, regular things as you'd imagine, well, you know, kind of the goals of what they want. So let's go over this a little bit, but it's important to know a little bit of background here. That Jake Song was the original creator of Archeage 1. He's worked in Lineage, you know, the whole Lineage franchise. He's done a lot of things, all right? Yes, he went off and worked on Civilization Online for a little bit, okay, which was actually 2K Games being like, hey, XL, can we use your assets for stuff? And XL's like, yeah, totally, we're actually very good at that. And so they tried to make it work, and 2K didn't really like it, so they kind of abolished the project, and Jake Song came back to Archeage, right? I think that was actually a really good opportunity for XL, because XL is pretty damn good at making assets. I mean, they're actually fantastic at it. In fact, with Archeage 2, I wouldn't be surprised if they took a bunch of assets from Archeage 1 and used them, because a lot of the stuff in the textures and a lot of the stuff is already scaled for 4K resolution at least, right? We know this because the icons in the game even are scaled to 4K resolution. If they weren't, they'd all be blurry for me, because right now I'm in 4K resolution, and I know that when I go down to 1080p, everything blurs a bunch. So it's kind of interesting. I feel like they're probably going to reuse a lot of assets, which could actually speed up the process of development quite a bit. But the capabilities of Unreal Engine 5 could make them want to do more, and so we'll kind of see what happens. So that's kind of the bit of background. So Jake Song came back to Archeage. You know, there's been a lot of different things that have happened since then. Kakao has a full stake in XL Games, so they have reason to want to push this as well. Yeah, absolutely, Archeage 2 with RTX. VR RTX, let's do it. I can't, oh man, dude, VR, let's do it. That has to be a thing, right? Anyways. So, I mean, I'm excited for everything, of course, but I am absolutely considering this as a separate game, okay? It is a different game from Archeage 1, and it needs to be... I cannot yell that enough. People have to chill, okay? It could be totally different. It could have totally different gameplay, okay? So that established, okay? Now we can go into this. So, there's a bit of history with him, right? We know all that stuff. So the actual, you know, the interview with themselves... they also put a little bit of background on the game itself. So Archeage 1, it was actually, like, closed beta testing was 10 years ago, is what they're saying, okay? And the actual game came out in 2013 officially. So just from the closed beta test, there were 3 years until the game came out. That said, it's probably going to be about 2 to 5 years until Archeage 2 comes out. So don't get hyped right now. It's going to be, you know, we're going to chill. I'd say anywhere between 2 to 5, and that's a huge difference, because 2 years if they're really rushing it, and they really want this to be a thing, and they just reuse assets, and they reuse, like, a lot of things from the first game, and if they're making it very similar to the first game, then it'll probably be earlier, right? Unreal Engine is actually quite nice. You can create games quite a bit faster. Actually quite a bit faster. Let me be honest with you. Compared to Crysis Engine, Unreal Engine is insane. But that's nice, that's a luxury, and I think that they're going to use that time instead to make the game more polished, so they'll still delay it quite a bit, right? And I think that's how it needs to be. So it's going to be quite a while before we see it. That's why all this stuff on this page, just relax, it's going to be okay. There's lots of videos that are like yelling about Archeage and being like, oh, I'm going to just forget it completely because of the management, and I get it, I understand that. I think everybody does, right? And I am the same way as well. I'm not going to, you know... Let's be honest here. Kakao Games takes over whatever. I don't know how much of an influence they had, but guess what? C server now is a thing, right? And we know that XL Games likes the Archeage Unchained layout. They like the Arc Pass. They've used it in their own servers. In fact, the Arc Pass is coming to Legacy. We know this because 7.0, or actually it's like 7.0 something, in Korea, has an actual Arc Pass on their legacy servers now. They really like that system. And yet, XL Games loves the system so much, the C server doesn't have it. The C server is still pay to win. So they've just come out with a server, and yet it doesn't have all the same, like, it's still the pay to win. It doesn't make any sense. Like, they're just going to make another C server later that is probably less pay to win. Like, it's like a weird marketing scheme. So it's hard to trust XL Games because there's a lot of weird things that they're still doing to this day. And it might just be influenced by Kakao. Who knows? But I feel like C did not have the release that they were almost promised, the release that we were hoping for. In fact, on the actual video Jake Song talks about C right before its release, they say that they want it to be released on the same patch as Korea, and that didn't even happen at all. Like, it was released on a much earlier patch than Archeage Unchained. So it's weird. It's a little bit of an odd scenario going into Archeage 2, what they're possibly going to be doing here, right? Yeah, I can send the link to this in chat. Is Archeage Unchained still live? Yeah, absolutely, and I have a video on that on my YouTube channel, but I don't want to go into that right now because I'm doing Archeage 2 stuff. But I have a pretty good video on that overview as a highlight on my YouTube channel, Acer. Yeah, it's weird, isn't that Swagsy? So I don't know. I don't know the answer to that exactly. I don't know what... Like, dude, I love C. I really wish that they did that earlier, and I wish they did it in a much stronger way, but it is what it is, I guess. Okay, so anyways... So back to this interview. So he talks about a whole bunch of different stuff, right? There's questions about the background of the game. There's questions about why they're doing this at all. And the truth is, yeah, it's a marketing thing, right? Archeage is actually, like, one of the biggest things it has going for it is that there's this immense amount of story behind it. And they make mention that as well. And a lot of players don't really understand that. So hopefully this is a pretty good attempt at them to really bring that to the forefront where they didn't before. And I've talked about that sort of thing a lot, but it's actually quite a big thing in the game that could be quite interesting if they really pushed story. But in general, the gameplay is a big deal, right? You can do anything you want in the game, from, like, you know, from fishing to underwater hunting to, like, you know, big boat battles, fighting overworld bosses. There's the farming aspects, of course. There's hidden farms you could make. There's a million things you could do, and I think they're going to try to bring that back in a more streamlined way in Archeage 2. He kind of talks about that, where he says, you know, there's so much that goes on that they're gonna make less of the open world crazy freedom stuff, but they want to bring most of it back, right? They want to bring the idea of it back into Archeage 2 so that you can do anything you want. But the game is going to be for mobile, and who knows, possibly Xbox and other things as well, right? So, and in addition to PC. So the actual gameplay could be anything. The gameplay could be massively different than Archeage 1. And again, consider it as a different game. Again, people still play Guild Wars 1. Again, people still play EverQuest 1. So it's important to keep those things in mind. So there's a lot that's going on here, okay? And there's a lot of things that they're going to try to go kind of with. In fact, if we want to go back to the lore topic, look at this amazing picture. Look at this thing. This is, by the way, they're saying that it's set quite a bit after the events of Archeage 1, and so the hero in Archeage 1, your main character, could actually be almost like a myth or a legacy by Archeage 2. But look at this. I mean, this is the Ionod library, which has like a little tower here next to it, which is probably one of the, one of the faction holdings. And so this is clearly set in a way, way later time, right? But anything could happen in this game in the actual way that they create it. There might not even be factions in this game. They might completely remove the faction system. They could bring in the Akash and make them the actual forefront. Maybe they've actually escaped somehow. They could do all sorts of things to make the game more PvE-oriented in a way that also brings in PvP somehow. So, who knows? It could be all sorts of things. But what we do know, like, this is all speculation. And again, why I want to reiterate, this is a different game that they're creating. Everything could be different, from the gameplay to how they're going to be presenting to lore, to the faction system, to anything. So just relax. It's going to be a long time before we know anything about it. They might still do an official announcement maybe next year, but we gotta chill and just wait until we hear more. And yes, absolutely I'm going to play it, because I really like the Archeage everything. I just hope that they keep the old gameplay system, but honestly, who knows, man. Shame they disabled the library. Somehow it's in AA2. Well, I mean, it's a lore thing, right? And I'm sure that there's still a lot that they're going to be doing with it. Diamond Shores gets water back in its spot again. Yeah, it looks like it's kind of falling apart, right? Like all the land is slowly sort of deteriorating from Aurora. Deteriorating, I should say. Yeah, so... But regardless, yeah, they're still going to be updating Archeage 1, of course. I mean, like all these other games are, they're still going to be working on content for Archeage 1. They're still going to be doing things for Archeage 1. That support isn't going to just die out. This is a separate game with a separate team, right? They might actually bring concepts from Archeage 2 into Archeage 1 to kind of start narrowing, I can't talk, putting the story together, all right, guys? You know what I mean. So it'll be, again, interesting to see how that kind of plays out. I think that, you know, them going back to the drawing board and everything and starting from scratch and, you know, doing things in a very updated engine gives them a lot of opportunity to make the game they want really, really well and really, really well done. That game could be very different from Archeage 1. It might not even have skill sets. It might be like one of those 4-button systems, like with 4 abilities at a time, like we see with a lot of other games coming out right now, right? Where you just have a lot less you can do. Like how New World is. It could be like that, honestly. We don't know. So we kind of have to see. We have to see what they actually do with it. There's very, very little that we get from this. Other than the fact that they're working on it. They have a lot of visions from things like Lineage, from WoW, from Archeage 1, that they want to really kind of bring in. My guess would be a lot more co-op gameplay, because they understand that that is a more... it's a better way to bring people into your game, like, you know, we see with Guild Wars 2 or with Final Fantasy. You know, co-op and PvE is a big deal, but I'm sure they're going to be bringing in PvP aspects to everything too. Personally, I think that they will actually make it so that there are no factions. It is co-op gameplay. It is something you could play as an MMO and do world boss content and stuff, but there's going to be a lot more to it lore-wise that we see. That's my personal guess. But we have to treat it like a separate game. Like, there's... Man, I don't know, dude. There's so many videos on YouTube right now where everybody's like, oh, but XL Games is just going to make money off of it, and you know, all they're doing is they're trying to milk the community or whatever. And yeah, they're trying to make money, of course. I hope that they go the route of Archeage Unchained. I hope that they go the route of no pay-to-win, of no marketplace, you know, you can just buy gold, essentially, or anything like that. The reality is, I don't see that happening. I don't, because of the way that we've seen things historically, like the way that the C server came up. It doesn't make any sense. So we have to see more, you know, closely later on, but we'll see what they actually create, right? We don't know. There's really nothing we can go off just by this article alone. We just know that they want to develop one, which is nice. And, you know, they're bringing in the original writer of Archeage, you know, the books themselves, The Fur and the Hawk, and the other two, I believe. And it's nice. I think it's cool. Yeah, they're still going to be working on Archeage 1, of course. Archeage 1 is going to be a very different game, most likely, than Archeage 2, so honestly, I see a lot of people sticking with Archeage 1 if they like that gameplay versus Archeage 2. Myself, I might be included in that. But, you know, there's hype around it when it still probably is going to be about 2 to 5 years before we see anything really big, right? So everybody, just relax. Go get your tea. Don't feel like you've wasted your time in Archeage 1 because there's a second game coming out, because it is a totally different game, most likely. Again, based on history and based on Jake Song's history and how the game market is changing, I feel like it's going to be an extremely different game. But I think there will still be an audience for it, and it will be enjoyable, right? And then eventually they'll bring it to other markets and other regions. It's not just going to be Korea, but, you know, maybe 6 months to a year down the road, then the other regions will start to get it, right? And yeah, it'll probably be hosted by Kakao, right? Instead of them going out to some other partner like GameAgo or anybody else, they'd rather just publish it themselves. I do see that as being a thing too. And we've seen how Kakao does that, right? We've seen how I get it. You know, a lot of people don't like Tryon and GameAgo or whatever, but man, I don't like how they publish games. It's exactly with how XL does it directly. So I don't think anybody's worth. I don't know, man. It's like equally bad, I think. I don't know. The players aren't going to benefit no matter what happens. All right. It's all about making money and providing some kind of gameplay to keep people in the game, right? That's how we've seen it generally. I hope that they do a different route with Archeage 2, but it is going to be a different game, so who knows? We'll have to see. I think the biggest here is that they're kind of talking a lot about how they want to develop it with like mobile in mind as well. you know, they want to make it for both PC and mobile and everything else. I think that's going to be the biggest gotcha that people are going to, I don't know, the people are going to see it's a different game over, right? If you want to make a game that's mobile and PC, you can't have 4,500 different abilities at the bottom of your screen, unless you literally are making it so all they can use their phone on is Farmville, which is probably not what people want to play, right? So this down here is not happening in Archeage 2, period. I just don't see this being a thing. I don't see this being a thing in Archeage 2. I just can't imagine how that would happen. Which sucks, because I love this gameplay. I love having so many things, but I think they're going to streamline it for a wider audience, which makes sense monetarily and by the gameplay. I think the gameplay is going to be really fun. It's just not going to be what Archeage 1 is. That's my personal guess on it, but we'll have to see, right? I'm still going to be optimistic about it because I think that they have a pretty good vision in the game and they have some really, really cool stuff with lore going for them that, I don't know, people kind of undervalue. So we'll kind of see how that goes. So that's my long opinion about Archeage 2, alright? That's where we're talking about it. That's where we're gonna stop talking about it, because I don't know what else to say. What do you guys think? I'm hyped, but I'm not gonna be like head over heels over it, right? I really enjoy Archeage 1. It's a really, really fun game. The combat and everything is really good, so I hope that they bring in, like, everything back, right? They've said that they want to bring in vehicles and mounts and stuff like that back. They still want to bring in a lot of those kind of aspects of gameplay, which is good. Totally. I don't think it's going to be like this. I don't think it's going to be like this. But it'll be maybe like half of this, right? Something like that. Something so it's easier to play on your phone. Or it's easier to maybe play if they do bring it to, like, Xbox or something. We'll have to see.